Welcome to another episode of Trial Site News. The FDA finding that the overwhelming majority of American citizens are rejecting the latest booster doses of the mRNA vaccines that they authorized this past August are now shifting their approach. It appears likely that they will propose to change the COVID-19 vaccine schedule to a yearly dose, just like the current flu shot. We're going to discuss what is happening here. And so, from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, in anticipation of the forthcoming FDA Vaccine and Biological Products Advisory Committee meeting, going to be held on January 26th, America's regulatory agency covering drugs and vaccines looks to be headed towards a simplified and streamlined process for the COVID-19 vaccines. Under the new strategy, adults and children would get a once-a-year shot. The FDA appears to be planning a future centered on more efficient process, focusing on not only vaccine composition, but also vaccination scheduling and a process governing periodic updates of vaccination targeting SARS-CoV-2. Gone would be tracking how many shots patients have received or how many months it had been since their latest dose. FDA scientists say many Americans now have, quote, sufficient pre-existing immunity against the coronavirus because of vaccination, infection, or a combination of the two. Imagine that, pre-existing immunity is finally a thing again. However, a significant portion of the data that the FDA uses to back its assumptions isn't necessarily of the level and standards to be deemed as evidence. For example, they refer to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention studies that we here at Trial Site News have reported on and suggested are nowhere near complete from an evidentiary standpoint. So let's take a closer look at this proposed FDA plan. Much like what is done for the flu shot, the FDA is proposing to monitor, track, and evaluate SARS-CoV-2 variants and subvariants annually with a target of June to collectively determine which strains to target for the specific forthcoming cold season. The FDA is possibly concluding that in the future only one vaccine dose is tailored to the targeted pathogens. The idea is that an annual immunization schedule is sought after based on a review of the posted documents. According to the FDA's briefing document, people not exposed to SARS-CoV-2, such as the very young or the unvaccinated or potentially persons with challenged immune systems, may require 2 doses instead of 1. In the recent advisory, the FDA takes a selective look at supporting studies, declaring that the, quote, preponderance of immunogenicity data from the vaccine manufacturers and independent researchers indicates improved neutralizing antibody responses to currently and recently circulating Omicron subvariants following bivalent mRNA booster vaccination when compared to monovalent mRNA booster vaccination. Additionally, observational data suggest that bivalent mRNA booster vaccination provides additional protection against symptomatic infection, emergency department, urgent care visits, and hospitalization. Now, the FDA, for observational effectiveness, is depending on studies such as Link-Gels et al., a 2022 CDC-funded study. But this is problematic. We here at Trial Site News reported on this study, and we discussed some serious concerns. For example, the data is extremely limited and not necessarily generalizable to the entire population. It is derived from the ICAT framework, which are merely a handful of pharmacy chains in moderate to risky areas. As an observational study, it comes with inherent limitations, and any findings should be interpreted cautiously. The CDC itself listed their standard limitations, which included vaccination status, previous infection history, and underlying medical conditions were self-reported and might be subject to recall bias. For example, if previous infection provides protection against repeat infection, then VE estimates in the study would likely be biased toward the null, because self-reported previous infection differed by vaccination status. They mentioned other key behavioral data. Exposure, use of masks were not collected, and may result in residual confounding. There were other bias associated with differences in testing behaviors between vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. This study also tells us nothing of safety signals, which are growing in intensity and getting more attention and focus across the globe. We need more data from broader, real-world samples, as well as a wider and deeper focus, including safety incidents. This is necessary for more scientific understanding of the true performance of these bivalent booster products. This is especially the case given the accelerated way the product was released to the market, meaning less clinical trial data and the like. The CDC was clearly using this early data to drive mass booster vaccination, declaring last year that all persons should stay up to date with recommended COVID-19 vaccinations, including bivalent booster doses for eligible persons. The White House even used the CDC study. Sweeping declarations were made as a result of this early release, observational, significantly limited study. That's right, my friends. The output of this data was used by the White House in a conveniently timely manner to accelerate the vaccination program last year. It coincided with the 6-week sprint for the holidays with hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money involved. However, despite this, the public at large didn't take to the last mass vaccination scheme. Although more than 80% of the U.S. population has had at least one vaccine dose, only 16% of those who were eligible to receive the latest booster did so. The public, it seems, is both weary of the constant booster doses and has become ever more vaccine hesitant as safety signals and vaccine injuries continue to make the news. Which then leads us back to why the FDA is using this data for their proposal to the upcoming Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee meeting. FDA officials have made it clear that they believe moving to an annual schedule will make it easier to promote future vaccination campaigns and perhaps convince a greater part of the population to comply with this recommendation. So to summarize all of this, the FDA has taken the CDC studies, as well as studies that are not even peer-reviewed as of yet, and have declared that the preponderance of immunogenicity data from the vaccine manufacturers and independent researchers indicates improved neutralizing antibody responses to current and recently circulating Omicron subvariants following bivalent mRNA booster vaccination when compared to monovalent mRNA booster vaccination. And they will use this to propose a yearly COVID shot going forward. Now, we here at Trial Site News will be watching and reviewing the January 26th Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee meeting. And naturally, we'll keep you posted on what happens. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday, or for numerous written articles every day, 7 days a week, check us out at trialsitenews.com. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.